Hello, Beth, Ibrahim, and all the festival goers tuned in to our final Fall Fest GPJFF in conversation with Breaking Bread director Beth Elise Hawk. My name is Olivia Ansis, and I'm the executive artistic director of the festival. I hope everyone who has attended our virtual festival this season has seen some great Jewish cinema and has enjoyed their festival experience. I'm here tonight only to introduce our special guests, but I know that I'm leaving you in great hands. Our moderator this evening is Ibrahim Miari. And Ibrahim, can you tell me if I'm not saying your name correctly?
Oh, you said it right, Ibrahim Miari.
Okay, awesome. Okay, so Ibrahim Miari is a theater artist originally from Israel. He holds an MFA in theater education from Boston University. While living in Israel, Ibrahim was a member of the Echo Theater Center Ensemble, creating original plays in Hebrew, Arabic, and English, and performing in Israel and Europe. He has performed his semi-autobiographical one-man show, In Between, both nationally and internationally at universities, theaters, and arts festivals. Ibrahim is also a language lecturer at the University of Pennsylvania, a yoga instructor, and a Sufi dancer. Thank you so much, Ibrahim, for joining.
Pleasure to be here. Thank you so much.
And our guest of honor tonight is the director of Breaking Bread, Beth Elise Hawk. Beth Elise Hawk executive produced the MTV television series Eye Candy in 2015, based on the book by best-selling author R.L. Stine. She also produced the award-winning feature documentary Fan Demanium, hope I'm saying that correctly, in 2007, and co-produced I'm Rick James in 2009. Breaking Bread is Beth's directorial debut. Before making the jump to the creative side, Beth was a business and legal affairs executive at Walt Disney Studios in its feature film department, where she oversaw projects for its Hollywood Pictures, Walt Disney Pictures, and Touchstone labels, including such productions as High Fidelity in 2000 and Mystery Alaska in 1999. She received her doctorate degree from NYU School of Law and a Bachelor of Arts from McGill University. Thank you so much for joining us, Beth.
Olivia and Matt, thank you so much. And thank you so much to the Philadelphia Jewish Film Festival for allowing me to be here and for inviting my film to be the closing film. It's such an honor. Thank you.
Well, the honor is really ours. Thank you so much for sharing your film with us. It was wonderful. I'm sure everyone in our audience would agree. And I want to just, before I go, thank everyone again who has embraced this virtual format this season and has given us, a chance to present this festival in a new way. We really appreciate everyone's enthusiasm, participation, and support. We love hearing from you, through email. We love hearing what you thought of the films. And I'm really, really glad that everybody's here tonight to celebrate our closing night. So now I'm gonna leave Ibrahim and Beth to it and bid you all farewell. Enjoy tonight's program, stay safe, and have a happy holiday. And I will just be gone in one moment.
Take your time. Hi, Beth, how you doing?
Good, how are you?
Very well. Nice to finally see you virtually, but it's very nice to see and attach the image to the voice.
You do.
So I wanted to start with congratulations on the film. I watched it twice. I really enjoyed a lot of it. I want to start with how did you come to the idea of creating such film?
Thank you for watching it twice. It's a funny story. I was sitting in Los Angeles traffic, had my radio on, and on came Dr. Nofatana Ismail. She had just won Israel's Master Chef, but she was the first Palestinian Muslim to do so. She was doing a tour and she was talking about her mission to bring Jews and Arabs together through food now. And I said, oh my God, I have to meet this woman. I came home, jumped on my internet and, reached out to her on Facebook, and we connected so quickly. I always laugh. I always say it's a story of the internet age. And eventually she told me about her festival, and I said, well, this is the way to tell this positive story. I mean, I was attracted, of course, by the positive message coming out of it. And that's what sort of got me possessed and wanted me to tell the story.
It's wonderful.
Thank you.
So what is your relationship to food, and do you like to cook?
You know, that's a great question. Sorry, something is in my eye. I don't know what it is about food, but I am obsessed with it. I would call myself a semi-foodie. You know, I've traveled to El Bulli to eat at the restaurant before it closed. Food really does propel me. All the shows about food, from the Anthony Bourdain shows to the Chef's Table, so I'm obsessed with Chef's Table, to the Jiro Dreams of Sushi. I mean, I've watched all the food documentaries, so something about it really gets me going. My whole family, we're all cooks. My husband and my 13-year-old son are the real chefs of the family, and then my daughter would get mad at me for saying that.
Do you film them while they cook?
No, but I should. My son, he sells his baked goods, and I mean, I keep telling him he could win a kids MasterChef, but he doesn't want to go on. But yeah, so I love food, and you know, from you know, this is very personal actually, but once you start talking, you say things you probably shouldn't say. But I'm just saying, even when my father passed away, it was so important for me to get his dishes. He had these dishes that were from Morocco, that were hand painted, and it connects you. It connects me to him. If I can serve something on that dish, I feel him. And that's what's so cool about food, and that's what this is all about. You know, it tells stories, it connects you. So, you know, and also it can transform. So it brings people together. It erases religious labels. It erases political labels, because when you're eating together, you're just human beings suddenly, right? You're not you're just enjoying the food, and maybe you're talking about what goes into the food, and suddenly you're realizing that the person across from you is a human being. And then the fact that food, we're all influenced by food. All the people in the film were influenced by their grandparents. It didn't matter if they were Jewish. It didn't matter if they were Muslim. They all had the same experience, which I think is so incredible. And then I love how Nof talks about in the film her story about the Gaza dish of sumakia, and how people think of Gaza because of the news as a place of war and enemies. But if you eat sumakia, or however, maybe I'm mispronouncing it, then suddenly next time, because it's a wedding dish, you're maybe going to have a little bit different connection to Gaza next time. And you might think that, oh, wait a second, they actually have weddings there. There are people there. It's not just a place where enemies live. So I could keep talking and talking about food.
Please do. Yes, it's all absolutely. That's wonderful. I have to say the music in the movie was amazing. And I actually recognized the singer at the end of the movie. I actually heard him twice, Sohail Fodi. I give him a shout out. He's from Akko, but that was the singer. But who composed the music? Because there was definitely some Middle Eastern flavor and some East European flavor music. Tell us about the music.
Thank you. Yes, thank you for noticing. First of all, yes, the song at the end is by Zaman Band. And Abed Hathat, who's a Palestinian music supervisor in Los Angeles, helped me connect and get that fantastic song. But the score was composed by Omar Al-Deeb. And the sounds that you're hearing, the Arabic sound, he's Egyptian, Muslim. And as that was important to me, to continue first of all, to give some authenticity to the feel of the sound of the music. I wanted to bridge the sounds together, so you're spot on. Omar came up with the oud sound, which you're probably familiar with. And
yes.
It was my idea to bring in the Ashkenazi Eastern European violin. And I'm very thankful to Catherine Vondernamer, who played it. She lives in Germany. She actually went to University of Pennsylvania and played in the symphony there. But she's a friend, a family friend, and I reached out to her, and she would send the cues over WhatsApp, and we would talk about it and send notes. It was a real labor of love, the score. And as I said, it was important to me to sort of collaborate with Omar and find somebody who was Muslim so that we could sort of continue the narrative of the film and collaborate together and have a blended sound of music. So thank you for noticing, and it's very important to me.
I can tell it was a lot of love was put into the
A lot of love, yes.
To the music. That was wonderful. And I can't help it, but I'm from Akko. You see my background, or Akka, as the Palestinians would pronounce it. But first of all, like the entire movie, the beautiful locations, everywhere you went, these beautiful shots of Haifa from the top of the mountain, the Baha'i gardens, and then obviously Akko and different villages. Was it the first time you visited these places?
Some of them. The film, making this film was an absolute gift to me, and all of these experiences were so incredible. So I would say a lot of those locations were first time. I don't think I had ever been to Akko before the film, and I fell in love with Haifa, if you can't tell from the film, and I fell in love with Akko, and these are places that I don't—
not really, look at it.
How can you not? I don't think people know about it or understand it. I think it's one of these gems. It is this beautiful sort of ancient town on the Mediterranean. You have people living together in peace. It's got such charm. You know, Osama, who's so charming, was incredible. He took me around and took me through the market. But also, I had said to you earlier, one of the most incredible experiences I've ever had in my life was when I was scouting there, and a wedding happened, and suddenly through the streets was a groom with this black, beautiful leather jacket, and it was like the entire town was following him through to the center.
That's familiar to me. Yeah.
And I got swept into it. I swear I felt like I was in a James Bond movie. And I said to myself, wow, maybe if my husband ever wants to remarry me again, we're still married, we're not divorced, but just saying, maybe we'll do it in Akko, because it was wow, it was one of the most incredible experiences. And wow, that whole city is so special. I wonder if, Osama talks about how the children of Akko have this relationship with the sea, and how he talks about how he swam all the time and his grandmother would make the lobsters and all that. Was that your experience as well, or?
So I grew up in the new part of town, but I went to school in the old part of town. So I remember, fourth grade, fifth grade, my friends and I would sneak out during recess and go swim and come back, wet and with sand, and the teacher would be like, where were you? Yes, definitely connected to the sea. I mean, the symbol of Akko is the kids jumping off the wall into the ocean, one after another, fearless. I have fear of heights, so I didn't do that. But definitely there's a strong connection to the sea. And you said Akko and Haifa are the most beautiful. I agree with you. And between Akko and Haifa, there's this joke that I have to tell. They say, what is the most beautiful place in Haifa? Is on the top of the mountain, and the reason is because you can see Akko. And about the wedding, I mean, people don't need to send invitations, because when a wedding happens, they just celebrate. The entire community come together, and whether you know the groom or the bride, or whether you don't, you just stand there and everybody's cheering and happy.
Cheering and clapping. It was so special.
Yeah.
And I would also recommend, I mean, if people go to Israel, these are stops that you have to make. You can there's a ferry that you can take from Haifa to Akko. I mean, the drive is probably, what would you say, 30 minutes?
About 30 minutes, yeah.
So you can hit both locations in one day if you are traveling.
Yeah.
There, but I can't recommend it highly enough. I still don't understand how these places have not been discovered by the entire world, and they've stayed so mysterious and magical. But hopefully I bet the people want it to be that way. So maybe it's not good that I'm sending people there, but it's really spectacular.
It's all good. So going back to the movie, one of the questions that I had while watching it is, Nof says do I want to bring world peace through food? No. She answers herself. And then she says, but maybe I will affect three people, and these three people will tell three more people, and so on and so forth. And there was another chef that I'm blinking on her name right now, who said, the quote, she said, let chefs bring world peace. What do you
Efrat
think?
Enzel.
What's her name?
Efrat Enzel.
Efrat, yes. What do you think of these statements?
I mean, that's what inspired me, right? What's funny is I think Anthony Bourdain had the same feeling, and that's why I found that quote and said, wow, it sums up the entire movie when he said, food may not be the answer to world peace, but it's a start. And I think it mimics all the things we've been talking about, which is that, you can't really be fighting with, Tomer says, when you cook for somebody and he eats your food, that's where politics ends,
Right.
So I do think it's all about, sharing the message. And for me, I think continuing it through the music, even that was a step, collaborating with Omar and learning about each other. I think it's all about communication and contact and learning more about each other. When you're not strangers, it's harder to be enemies, Amos Sian said that it's in the trailer, it's not in the film, but I think it's such a great quote.
So you interviewed more people than actually ended up in the in the film. How tell us about the process of interviewing people, and who got the final cut, who was off, and why? What were the How was it?
I mean, for the most part, the story is simple. This was a string budget. I was the director, and I was also my own assistant because I didn't have anybody. I didn't have a production coordinator. It was me and my director of photography, Ofer Ben Yehuda, who I'm very grateful for, incredible food photographer, and our sound person.
That was
amazing. I love him so much. And it was the three of us, and I barely knew what we were doing the next day. We would work 16 hours and we'd go home, and then I'd have to still stay up and figure out the notes, figure out the questions, figure out who's available. It's Israel, and it's so hard and they're chefs. So it's hard to even get the schedule. We would really never know who it was, seat of our pants, who we were going to hit the next day or where we were going to go. And basically what would happen is, I think, just by virtue of the fact that these were chefs and Israelis, they all were so charming. They all were so different and charismatic. As soon as I met them, I knew, Shlomi was the first one I met, and you knew he was going to be in the film, right? And then you met Ali, and then they were together, and the chemistry was insane. And so it was sort of obvious, and I honestly didn't. I mean, Amos, I didn't cut out of the film either. He made it into the film. It's just that, and he collaborated with Saed, but sometimes you couldn't get, because of the amount of days or schedules, you couldn't get enough of a story to really build it as big as you could. So that's why I used a lot of the people that I found. They were all fantastic. That's really, it's not a secret. I mean, there were very few that I didn't use in some capacity, and it was just, and they were all so great. And it was just, I mean, just by virtue of their characters, they really were incredible. And so it was just really more about some of them we were able to get more of at the festival. If you think about it, the festival went on for 3 days, and there's all kinds of people cooking at different restaurants, and no coordinator for me to figure out where the hell are we going, so we were just running all over the place and getting as much as we could get of it. And that's, some stories were able to build big, and others we could still tell those stories, but maybe not in as big of a way.
That's, sounds a lot to manage in such short amount of time.
Yeah.
I did take a note, and I wrote Shlomi ? And you mentioned him a couple of times now. What was so? I thought he was your favorite. Correct me if I'm wrong.
I don't have favorites. These are all my children.
What was so appealing about him? Because he spoke more than others. Do you agree with me?
No, but well, I would just say I think his
He's
family story, the restaurant, was such an interesting story. I could have made it. My DP kept saying, "Are you going to make a documentary on Mayan Habira?" He thought the whole movie was just going to be Mayan Habira because it was such
Is
an
that
interesting
restaurant?
Yes,
Yes.
but it's such an interesting family restaurant, and there were so many stories going on at Mayan Habira, and so many characters because you had the father who was
Right.
incredible, and the sisters who were incredible, and so if that happened, it just is because wow, it was just such an interesting story, and I think it's resonating with people. But I would not say I had favorites. I really loved them all.
Of course.
I love them all. I mean, I still speak with as many as I can, and I love them.
That's yeah. And I thought the chemistry between him and Ali really was wonderful, and you could tell that immediately they were like.
That's why I feel like sure they took maybe a little bit of the lead only because wow, it was like mirror images. I felt. How did that happen? You had Shlomi with his grandfather's restaurant for 60 years, and you had Ali who wanted to bring his grandmother's recipes into a restaurant, and they had such similar drives. So it just
Speaking of his grandmother, Kishik, it was Kishik, right?
yes, yes.
And I know there was a scene where Shlomi is trying a bite, and he's like, "Oh, it's salty, is exactly the way it should be, and it's sweet the way it should be." And like it was kind of perfect. And then it was his first time trying it, and they ended up making the soup and the dish. And I was wondering how did people react to that, to the food in Haifa during the festival, because Kishik is really not. You can't find that anywhere. It's Nov said she had to go to Belgium to get it.
And I don't even think what Nov got in Belgium is really what Ali was doing. Ali's Kishik,
Did you go to Belgium to get it?
Ali, sorry?
Did you really have to go to Belgium?
I think so. I don't know. There's some. It must have to do with the border with Syria and.
Right. No. Yeah.
But you know, Ali's Kishik. I didn't have enough room in the film to tell all the steps of making that kishik. That was a 20-step process that I had to cut down to explaining that it dried for 20 days on the roof and then everybody could understand enough to know how special it was. But he talked about it went in a bucket with the yogurt, and then he said they put it in a diaper and they drain it in a diaper. It must be cheesecloth. I'm not sure, but and there were so many steps to this kishik. It was fascinating, and that's what's so special about this film too, I feel, and just from my own experience to be able to see these dishes that I'm speaking with chefs definitely in the United States, but even in Israel, that who don't even know what these dishes are. How cool is that with the internet and all the things that go on, and how everybody has access to everything and everybody knows everything, that people don't know about Akko, and they don't know about Haifa, and they don't know about Kishik, and they don't know about Monty, and they don't know about Ta'ashimi. And wow, that is just an honor for me to be able to share that and be the one to share that. Not to take credit for it, it's not mine, but just to be able to put it out there is cool. Yeah.
Do you think they're going to come up with a recipe book now that because I mean that would sell.
I'm working, actually. Thank you for asking, but I'm trying. I can't promise because I don't know how much you do deal with Israel on a daily basis. It's not easy from Los Angeles, especially. I'm sure you know what I'm talking about, but I've been talking to people on this too. The rhythm, we don't have the same rhythm that they do, and our time constraints or limits don't resonate with them. So I'm trying to collect recipes from all the different chefs. I'm hoping to make a companion book for the film. The film is supposed to have a theatrical release in 2021, which is so exciting. So these festivals, we're playing around the world. It played in London this week. It also won the Audience Award for Favorite Culinary Cinema at Napa Valley Film Festival. I mean, it's just I can't say enough about how grateful I am. But it's playing all these festivals leading up to this theatrical release. And my hope is to be able to have the companion book in time, because the dream is for people to be able to make a dish, perhaps something like a katayef. Maybe, I don't know if you're familiar probably with that dish, but salah kordi, that's one recipe that's already come in, and I was testing it out. He was in the film, he made the katayef with tomer, and it was actually very simple to make. And the pancake came out sort of like a bellini, and even though he stuffed it with fish, you can really, I saw you can sort of stuff it with whatever you want, really. So my hope is to be able to share a recipe like that with people who are going to go out and watch it at the theaters. They can cook for their friends, their families, or maybe their enemies, and or at least people that they're unfamiliar with, that they want to bridge contact with. And sort of continuing on what you asked, that would be the idea, to sort of continue this message and use food to sort of break down barriers.
Absolutely. So you mentioned festivals. I think you mentioned that the film was shown at the Haifa Film Festival. And were you there while
I was.
How were the reactions from the Israeli audiences?
It's interesting that you're asking, because as I had said to you earlier, when I went out to make this film, I really think I was making it more for an American audience. I didn't expect that the Israeli audience would be as receptive as it's been. You know, we're only at the beginning stages, but so Haifa, yes, they embraced it. We were sold out. We had a Q&A afterwards. Everybody came outside. Hila Alpert, who's in the film, she moderated it. Nof was there with me, and we spoke, and people wouldn't leave. They had to be kicked out because we were taking up too much time, and people loved it. And yeah, and then we were invited back to the Jerusalem Jewish Film Festival in December. And, you know, very similar situation. People loved it. And we were joined there by Dochel Safadi. Are you familiar with him? He is he's in the film. He's one of the forefathers of Arabic cuisine in Israel, modern Arabic cuisine. So he was there, and Salah Kordi was there. Nof was there with her mother. And of course, just general people were coming from in the audience. And yes, it was very well received, which I was just so happy about. And didn't expect,
So another question I had, since you had a Q&A in Israel and many Q&As in the States, various different Jewish film festivals, would you say there was difference between the questions that you got from Israeli audience versus American audiences? What attracted, what did the American point out to, or what resonated with them more so than Israelis, or vice versa?
I mean, the first thing I would say is I've been surprised as well about who the audience is for this film, because again, I didn't know what to expect, but this film has been embraced actually possibly more so by the non-Jewish audience and by the culinary audience. As I said, we won the Napa Valley Favorite Culinary Cinema Film Award. Santa Barbara International Film Festival also put us in the culinary sidebar, and we were sold out there as well. People have been loving it, and almost more culinary and non-Jews than Jews. And I think also people who are attracted to things like we were talking about before, like Anthony Bourdain. It's in that lane. But in terms of Israel, the conversation in Israel, and I actually tried to duck out of it in the Q&A, that I think was focused more on the section in the film about the politics of the food. And, you know, the Israeli, is it an Israeli salad? Is it an Arabic salad? You know, you have all different sides chiming in on that, but I don't want to be the one to chime in on that, because I am not a culinary historical expert. And you know, so I sort of stepped out of that, and that took up a lot of the real estate, I would say, at the Haifa Film Festival, especially because you had Hila there and Nof there, and a lot of the audience members were getting into that. And that hasn't obviously come up here because it's not, I'm sort of bringing it out for the first time here for people to understand the Levant and all of that.
So do you think, or let me rephrase this question. Now that the movie's out and many people saw it, and hopefully a lot of people will still see it, what do you hope people would take away from the movie? What message?
For me, and the message is clear. Can you tell the difference between the Jew and the Muslim in this film? I don't think so.
I can.
You can, but you know what I mean?
Yeah.
You can. Were you able to tell exactly who was who?
Well, when they started speaking, yeah.
Okay, perhaps by the accent a little bit, or perhaps by what they were choosing to talk about. But I still think my point is, these were people. These were not
Absolutely,
Jews.
We're all people. We're all people. Yeah.
Right. These were not Jews. These were not, in my, what I saw, this was not somebody who was a Jew or a Muslim. This was a person.
Yeah.
And I think that is what people can see in this film. And then you start questioning, gee, is it really, you can't simplify world peace. This is a complicated subject that I am not going to be the one to solve. But if I can help in just a teeny step, like Nof can help in just a teeny step, that's all I can do. And that's it,
Amen. Yeah. On that happy note, I want to thank you again for this wonderful interview and for this wonderful, wonderful film. Is there anything else you'd like to share?
I just want to tell.
I did not ask you that you wanted to talk about.
I would just ask people if they like the film to spread the word and follow the social media, Breaking Bread Movie. If you go on Instagram or Facebook, it's Breaking Bread Movie.
You have a website?
Sorry?
You have a website?
It's breakingbreadmovie.com, or if somebody wants to email me at breakingbreadmovie@gmail.com, that would be great. And just get the word out so that when it goes to theaters, people will go. And again, if I'll have information on there as I go, hopefully for this companion book as well.
Wonderful. Well, I look forward to talking to you off camera, and good luck with the movie. What's your next project? Do you know?
One of them is hopefully to do a television series inspired by the film. I would like to do that.
I'm an actor.
Good idea. Good idea.
All right, I want to thank you again.
Thank you.
And have a good night. And hopefully we'll one day soon, past Corona time, we'll get to have coffee together.
Let's hope we can break bread in Akko. That would be amazing.
Yes, that would be amazing.
Thank you so much. Thanks again to the Philadelphia Jewish Film Festival. Good night.